Welcome to the Voices of Florida House District 14, Love Thy Neighborhood, the podcast where your story matters. I'm Therese V. Wakefield-Gamble, a lifelong Jacksonville resident, educator, advocate, entrepreneur, and your 2026 candidate for Florida House District 14. This podcast is more than just conversations. It is a movement. From kitchen tables to corner stores, from neighborhood meetings to City Hall, and all the way to the Florida State Capitol. We're bringing together voices from every block, every precinct, every walk of life. From Sherwood Forest and Moncrief to Norwood and Brentwood, Lake Forest and Grand Park, Cedar Hills and Hyde Park, Arlington and Fort Caroline, Southside Estates, Ocean Way and Turtle Creek, Oakleaf, Normandy, and Crystal Springs. Your stories lead the way. And of course, we shine light on our historic districts: Springfield, Eastside, Durkeeville, San Marco, downtown near the stadium, and Merle Avenue. Communities rich with culture, struggle, and legacy. Whether you're a business owner, a teacher, a student, a faith leader, a frontline worker, or a grandma with decades of wisdom, this is your mic, your moment, and your neighborhood. So get comfortable, get inspired, and most importantly, get involved. Let's build Florida House District 14 together. The State of Virginia Senate Joint Resolution number 434, offered February 17, 2025, commending the Honorable William Ferguson Reed, MD. The Honorable William Ferguson Reed, MD, an outstanding physician, groundbreaking civil rights activist, and community leader, celebrates his 100th birthday in 2025. Fergie Reed grew up in the Jackson Ward neighborhood of Richmond, Virginia, and graduated from Armstrong High School and Virginia Union University. He continued his education by earning a medical degree from Howard University, then completed his medical internship and residency at Homer G. Phillips Hospital in St. Louis, Missouri. Fergie Reed subsequently enlisted in the United States Navy and was assigned to the 1st Marine Division during the Korean War, then served at Bethesda Naval Hospital in Maryland. Fergie Reed returned to Richmond, Virginia, and opened a private surgical practice that served the community for more than 20 years. He also provided his leadership and expertise to several local hospitals during the 1950s and 1960s, including Richmond Memorial Hospital, Richmond Community Hospital, Retreat for the Sick Hospital, the Medical College of Virginia, and St. Mary's Hospital. As the first black surgeon in Richmond, Virginia, Fergie Reed weathered many barriers to participate in his profession. He was rejected for membership in the medical society due to his race. He was denied staff privileges at area hospitals because staff privileges were extended only to members of the medical society. And because he was unable to practice in local hospitals, he could not obtain the requisite recommendations of 5 area surgeons to apply for membership in the American College of Surgeons until staffs of area hospitals were desegregated. Fergie Reed led the fight to desegregate medicine in Richmond, Virginia, opening doors for black physicians to obtain membership in local, state, and national medical education associations and societies. Fergie Reed co-founded the Richmond Crusade for Voters in 1956 and began volunteering his leadership and expertise to civic organizations at the local and state levels in Virginia. Fergie Reed ran for and was elected to the Virginia House of Delegates in 1967, during which time he introduced and supported numerous pieces of legislation to benefit his constituents and the Commonwealth as a whole. In 1977, Fergie Reed began working for the United States Department of State as a regional medical officer. On Fergie Reed's 90th birthday, the 90 for 90 campaign was launched in his honor, imploring volunteers throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia to inspire other Virginians to fulfill their civic duty to vote by registering 90 new voters in each precinct every year. Fergus Reed has served the Richmond community and the Commonwealth with distinction, inspiring others through his personal integrity and unwavering commitment to servant leadership now. Therefore be it resolved by the Virginia Senate, the House of Delegates concurring, that the General Assembly hereby commend the Honorable William Ferguson Reed, M.D., on this occasion of his 100th birthday.
For?
The same one, Florida House District 14 against Kimberly Daniels. The same person I was running again. Yep, same district.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, tell me, is all of this in Jacksonville?
Yes, sir, it is.
And could you tell me how many precincts there are in that House district?
It is 160 precincts.
Well, that's pretty large.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, do you have the ban list or list of the names of all the voters in the precincts?
Yes, sir, I do have it. I get updates every month because we get so many people moving to the area, and a lot of them are registering. So I check in with the supervisor of elections to get an updated list about every month.
Okay, that's good. Mm-hmm. Now, what I would advise you to do is to look over the last list you got, and if you see any names that you recognize, put a check mark by them.
Yes, sir.
And what you want to do, you want to get somebody in each of those precincts to be your contact person or to be in charge of that precinct team.
Yes, sir.
You follow me? So if you get, it's going to take a little time, but who is your key person that's working with you?
Right now, it's my husband, Ernest Gamble Sr. He is my ally. He's my secret weapon right now. Yes, sir. He's very good, very savvy. He's very people oriented, and a lot of people know him just like they know me.
Right now, do you all belong to any clubs or organizations or churches or fraternities or sororities?
Now, for his clubs, yes. I'm a member of, I'm on the standing committee for the Duval Democratic Election Committee. I'm the chapter president of the Duval Democratic Environmental Caucus. I'm a member of the Democratic Women's Information Network. I'm also a member of the Duval Democratic Black Caucus, as well as I am getting ready to be a member of the Duval Democratic Asian and Pacific Islanders and the Hispanic Caucus in Jacksonville.
Okay. Now, do they have membership lists?
Yes, they do.
Okay. Do you have a key person in each one of those organizations?
Yes, I do.
Okay. First of all, find out what precinct they live in.
Okay.
Follow me?
Yes,
and get them to be the key person in that precinct. All you want them to do is to work that precinct. So once you get a person in each precinct, you give them a copy of the list of the people in that precinct. You follow me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then their responsibility is to start with when you give them the precinct list, you bring it up by street. And you can bring it up by street, and you find out what street they live on, and give them the list of names on that precinct. But the whole precinct is going to be their responsibility. But then you tell them to go by street and get someone to be a member of the team. Now, this is what you say. My name is so-and-so, and I'm calling for Therese, running for the House in Florida. And I want you to help me get members in that precinct active. And all I want you to do is call them and say, I want to give you a list of about 10 people in your neighborhood to call and ask them to join. And then if they join, you give them a list of about 10 people and ask them to call those 10 people and ask them to join. And you do that, and if you get a response, you got 10, you got 100, you got 1,000, and you got 10,000. You follow me?
Yes, sir. I see the strategy.
They're not going to be 10,000 in each precinct, probably 300 or 400. Then, once you do that, you get them. Do you have a person who's a statistician or a numbers person?
Yes, I'm working on that now. Vetting a couple of folks, but I've learned after talking with your son to help me break down those numbers. So I'm a very good note taker. Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, what you do, you find out in the last general election, that was the presidential election, and more people turned out for that than any other election. So you get one person in each precinct, or you can do this. How many votes, who won that precinct, by how many votes, Democrat or Republican, and who lost it by how many votes. If the Democrat won, say, by 100 votes, you set them a goal. Okay, we need you to get between now and election day, give them a number, 200 new voters. And you get them from the 18-year-olds. And when you make calls to the people in by the blocks, find out from them how many 18-year-olds they have, make sure they register them, and make sure they get everybody out to the polls on election day. So you do that precinct by precinct. Your goal is to win each precinct. So those precincts that you already won, you tell them, I want you to get at least 200 new voters, or give them a number, so that even though you lose in some, you have an excess in those that you carry. That's enough to give you a total enough to carry that precinct. So if you carry each of those precincts, you're going to win. You follow me?
Sir. Yes, sir, I do. It sounds like a strategy. Yes, sir.
Okay. You got any questions?
My first question is to you. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me and giving me this strategy. Your son, Ferguson Jr., reinforced that to me, and I didn't forget it. And that is why I'm taking this opportunity to launch this podcast for my campaign.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. So my first question to you is: you were a physician. You was a civil rights activist, and you was a community leader. Why was it so important for you to take this fight up to get rid of Jim Crow in Virginia?
Well, I guess it came from my family. My mother and daddy were both very active with the NAACP, and he was active on a national level. And we got the NAACP had a little magazine that they put out called the Crisis, CRISIS, and that I got to know the names of the people in the NAACP, and they at that time lynching was very prevalent, and I followed the Scottsboro boys. There were about 9 black boys convicted of raping a white lady, and it was bogus. But I followed them, and I got involved in civil activities, and also they boycotted one of the grocery stores in our neighborhood, Atlantic and Pacific. It was called the A&P, and because they were in a black neighborhood and they didn't have any black clerks. But needless to say, the boycott didn't achieve the goals. But I got active in that, and there are several other things that my father was involved in. That I followed what was going on about that time. During that period, the first thing, I got to have an understanding wife and family, because it takes a lot of time from your family, as you know. And so first of all, they have to make sure that the family is in them with them. And fortunately, my wife was a fighter also, and my kids, when they were in Richmond, supported me. They knew that there would be less time to spend with my family than it would be if I were not having that particular avocation or hobby. So that's how I was able to do it. I'm a surgeon, so I specialize in surgery. So I had control over the patients that I was taking care of. All of my patients ended up in the hospital, so I would go over there in the morning and check them out, and then go back in the evening and check them out to see if they were doing all right. And then I would go ahead and do what we had to do to organize our organization to get it going.
Birthday. How was that experience?
Well, that was pretty good, but I was unable to attend, but I really appreciate them thinking about me and appreciating the work that we did in order to make it possible for them to get it elected. And I really appreciate them remembering me. But I wasn't looking for any notoriety or anything. In fact, I don't know if my son told you, I had no intention of running for politics, but I was interested in voter registration, education, and getting out to vote, and also integrating the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party was still under the control of the Byrd machine, and the black Democrats were all part of the Byrd machine. So that was one of the things we wanted to break up. So working with J. Sergeant Reynolds, who was one of the Reynolds Metal Company's heirs, he and I, plus a couple of white guys that thought like we did, they were able to open up the Democratic Party to blacks. So there was 2 things I had to do, was to get out the black vote, and then also to open up the Democratic Party. At that time, members of the House of Delegates ran at large from Richmond and the county that surrounded it. That was a form of gerrymandering. And so they had 8 delegates running from both the city and the county. So we ran as a slate. So I convinced them that they had to put a black on the slate with the other 7 people, in order for us to support them. So that was put in there to keep blacks from voting. But at that time,
that doesn't sound like a lot of money now, but it's a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
Right, Teresa? It doesn't sound like a whole lot of money right now, but back then, that's a whole lot of money.
Because you could buy a pound of sugar for 6 cents, and you could buy a pack of cigarettes for 15 cents, a loaf of bread for 10 cents. So that was a lot of money. So the guy that sponsored the bill was Carter Glass, a white segregationist. At that time, he was in control of the Democratic Party, which was later taken over by Harry Byrd, a senator from Virginia. Okay. So his name was Carter Glass, and one of his senators said, "Carter, you know what? That poll tax is going to keep a whole lot of poor white people from voting too." He said, "That's exactly what we want. We don't want any poor whites, but we don't want any niggers voting in our elections." So really, it was a hindrance to the poor whites too, but they didn't give a damn about them. They just wanted to keep us from voting.
Wow. Everyone, we have Dr. Ferguson Jr. joining us, which is the son of Dr. Ferguson Sr. in the conversation. So they made a valid point. The poll tax may not seem a lot now, but back then in that era, that was a lot of money. So Dr. Ferguson, so now I understand a little bit more about the Byrd machine and how that works to prevent poor whites and African and blacks from voting in elections. So that was the reason.
And becoming a coalition with each other, because one of the things the Byrd machine did was to preach racism and black inferiority and white superiority. So all of this is still happening. And you see what's going on with this thing that's going through Congress now. They're trying to make it hard for white women to vote. And they're treating the white women right now, they're treating white women like they used to treat black people in the way that Dad's describing to everybody right now. They're trying to make white women and everybody, but really it's aimed at the white women, jump through all these hoops to get their voter registration. Go ahead.
So Dr. Jr., why is that? Why are they going after the white women now?
Because they know. Go ahead, Dad.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
They know they can't win these elections because the demographics are catching up with them. They're already having to do these emergency measures to win these elections. Trump is out there alluding to the fact that Musk helped him win this election this cycle, whether he did or he didn't. He certainly did by giving him $250 million and owning Twitter and blasting everything with his messaging. They can't win elections fair and square as the time goes on. And the one beautiful thing about Virginia is that there's an election every year. A lot of people in Virginia hate it, but it's really good practice for voters because you got something to vote for every year. So the Republicans know they can't keep winning elections if the Democrats keep going the way they're going. And that's why they're preaching all of this, lack of diversity and subjugation of women, and they're trying to take the vote away from white women like they've been trying to do against black people for decades.
So go ahead, Dr. Sr.
Go ahead. Well, I just wanted to ask you something about your campaign, but I can answer that after we get over this. So you have some questions, or any of the other listeners have questions?
Yes, I got a couple of questions for you. You said you didn't intend to run for political office. What made you take on that responsibility to become that sacrificial lamb? And by the way, thank you for doing so.
Well, if you preach something, and I convinced him they had to put a black on there, and the black that everybody agreed on backed down, then they said, well, you got to run. You're the only one we know that we can work with. So it fell in my lap, and if I believed in what I was preaching, I had to accept it and go ahead and make the double sacrifice.
So what Dad's talking about is that he and two other guys in the Black community started this group. You know, which is your frame of reference is Jacksonville. Dad's frame of reference is Richmond, Virginia. But just act like they're the same thing. This is the 1950s, where Dad and these two other guys, Dr. Bill Thornton and Johnny Brooks, started this group called the Crusade for Voters. And they were trying to teach all the Black folks in the area, you should use the power of your vote. Yeah, these white folks are trying to make you scared to vote, and they're trying to make it hard for you to vote. But we're going to help you, you know, overcome the obstacles so that you use the power of your vote, because there's tremendous power in your vote. And over the course of 10 years, a lot of Black people started voting. And it got to the point that Dad was describing to you, where his group and his voting coalition forced the white power structure to put a Black person on this multi-member district slate of candidates. He alluded to the fact that that's a form of gerrymandering and a form of voter suppression. So I want to make sure everybody understands this. A lot of Black people lived in Richmond. And if there had been a single member district, there would have been a Black person in the legislature. But in order to dilute all that Black vote, they added in a gigantic swath of white communities into one gigantic district from which 8 guys would get elected, so that all the Black vote would be diluted and only white guys would get elected. So Dad first ran as he was, you know, drafted into running in 1965. That's why he's calling himself the sacrificial lamb. But he lost by just a very narrow margin. And he knew, well, damn, if I can lose just by this little bit, then I can win. I just need to work a little harder. That's what he was talking to you about when I first joined this call, about organizing your area and how to know how many votes you're getting before the vote happens.
Okay.
So that's what he did. And the second time out in 1967, he won in this gigantic multi-member district. And that's when all of the red lights started flashing in Richmond amongst the white power structure, because they said, well, shit, if this guy can get elected, they could elect all Black people from these 8, all positions. All 8 guys could be Black people if this one guy can get elected. So let's change it up a little bit so that, you know, we just keep the number of Black people in kind of low. And they did that. And Dad was the only Black person from the Richmond area in 1967 and 1969. I'm pretty sure in 1971 as well. And I'm not sure if another Black person from Richmond got elected in 1973 or not.
We had already elected a Black to city council. There were 9
I'm
members.
talking about the state legislature, though, Dad. So
yeah, but I want to say
I
that
got you.
we broke the ice. The city council had 9 members, and we were able to work our slate so that we picked up some people that we knew, white people that we knew were going to win, and we put a Black, 1 or 2 Blacks on that slate, and we were able to fix the slate. So even though some of the whites were segregationists, we knew they were going to win regardless of our vote. So we put about 3 that we knew were going to win, 3 moderate whites and 3 Blacks on the slate. And that would be our slate that we would pass out at the churches on the Sunday before the elections, with the 9 people that we advised them to vote for. And by doing that, we were able to get a Black on city council maybe about 2 or 3 years before we got to the point that we had enough power to get a Black on the state legislature. But we went up city council first, and then to the Black House, to the House of Delegates, and then to the state Senate. So, and then to the congressional district. So we went up gradually, and not to try to do too much at one time, but we built a foundation, and we built on that foundation to get larger and larger. Yeah, okay. That was the only other question I had for you.
Yeah. So right now it's kind of everybody is not in the hunt and I'll start running again for re-election. Right now I'm the only one because after my campaign, my primary was not successful, and last year I signed up to rerun again. So right now I'm in petition signing collection mode. So I got a couple of the local party members helping me. That's part of the Duval Election Committee to help me get those petitions signed by June 1st. I need 1,100 signatures. So that's what we're working on now. I've collected almost 150 so far.
That's awesome. And let me explain to Dad what your district's like a little bit. Therese's district is overwhelmingly Democratic, but the Democrat that represents this district is probably one of the most problematic Democrats in the legislature because she's controlled by Republicans. Republicans pay for her campaign, and she votes with Republicans much more than any Democrat who's in a D+30 district would ever be expected to vote with Republicans. So Therese, against some headwinds, challenged her. The primary is the general election in this district. So the Democratic primary, as you were talking about it in Richmond and in Virginia decades ago, in this district in Jacksonville, the Democratic primary is the general election. So Therese just needs to win the primary against this problematic Democrat. And she's they call them representatives in Florida. They don't call them delegates. But she'll be in their legislature. And to your point, this is the lull of their election cycle. This is the peak of the Virginia election cycle, but this is the lull of the Florida election cycle. So Therese is out there doing the hard work already in the lull of her election cycle.
Well, here's the thing about on the petitions. Make copies of the petitions already that you have, and before you turn them in, make copies of every one of them. But and start calling the people who signed your petition to get involved on the local level within their precinct. You follow me? You already got 100. Some people locate them by precinct, which they have already done for you on the petition, I would assume. So you can start right now calling them and tell them you want to get them involved in their precinct, and go and find out how many votes you need to carry that precinct. So you can start right there now. I want you to register 18-year-old voters, get the people out to the polls who didn't come to the primary last time, and make sure they carry somebody to the polls with them. So you can start that now.
Right. So that is my strategy, Dr. Senior. But here is the issue. In Florida, their bylaws is restricting certain endorsement of candidates. So what I have been doing, along with collecting the petitions, is getting on the Legislative Affairs Committee in the Florida Democratic Party to get them to amend the endorsement process for when registered Democrats who do not vote or align with Democratic values, that they are publicly allowed to endorse and support candidates who do support the Democratic values and will vote along the lines to support Democratic voters. So I'm working with them now to change it at the state level, so that way every 67 counties in Florida, DECs, Democratic DECs, can be able to endorse the candidates that the voters want.
Right.
Now, So that's what I'm working on now. So we got to change the bylaws first in Florida.
I understand.
So I can be successful in executing the strategies you and your son has been graciously have given me and supported me since I've been running. So, and I've been keeping your son, Dr. Jr., informed of my activities because he tried his best to get them to implement the strategies you're telling me, and they're not listening. And so because he has taught me and you has reiterated, I am that voice now, is letting them know we can't do business as usual. We got to change the strategy. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you for stepping up, Therese, because nobody else wanted to do it, and you did it, and you showed everybody that, you know, there's nothing to be scared of.
You just have to.
Yeah, we appreciate
it. Thank you. So now my next question, you talked about the black vote, Dr. Senior and Dr. Junior, and right now I attended the Florida Democratic Black Caucus convention recently, and they had to elect they elected new officers, but it was not in the best. What should have took 3 hours to do or less, it took an 8-hour day to do that. And it is so many chiefs and not enough Indians. So my question is, because of the climate we in now, to the both of you, how do we need to galvanize the black vote? Because a lot of 180,000 people in Duval County did not vote in the general election for Kamala Harris.
Well,
180,000 in the county.
County.
So so take that number down smaller, put it on the microscope into your state house district. How many do you think that's 10 or more thousand in your state house district that didn't vote, or more than that?
It was more than that, because according to my primary, it was 630,000 registered voters in Duval County. The ballots that were cast was 124,033. So it was only under 20% voter turnout. That's for the primary out of 160.
Right, but in your house district, you know, do you think there were, let's just call it tens of thousands of voters didn't come out to vote in your house district, right?
That's correct, because it was 60,000 registered Democrats in Florida House District 14 in 2024.
So my answer to your question is take small bites, because you can't, you know, the old adage is you can't eat the elephant by yourself. You got to get a lot of people to help you eat the elephant, and it's got to be done over the course of time. So Dad's been saying this whole phone call.
Yeah.
Start small in your area. You want to increase the number of people that participate. You're doing it perfectly right now, because this is the exact lull of your election cycle. You guys in Florida do even years. So start the organization right now.
Yeah.
And you'll know how many people are going to come out to vote for you on election day, precinct day, primary day in your even numbered year, because you'll have organized them all. You know, you'll know every little coffee clutch group. You'll know every little neighborhood group. You know, you'll have your team captains on every block. You will be counting votes before the vote happens.
Right.
And one of the things you have to do is do it by precinct. How many registered voters are in your precinct? And that you tell them, look, in your precinct there, you can say 10% or 20% stay at home, even though they were registered. And they can relate to their precinct, but if you do it for the whole state, they're not going to relate to it. But you tell them there are X number of registered voters in this precinct, and it's a shame we only got X number of votes. So we got to do better, because they're right here. You know, even if we don't register anybody, we got enough votes right already. Anything else we get or pick up, a new registrants or 18-year-olders, that's gravy. You know, that's gravy. So you have to put it where they can relate to it, because they can see what you're talking about when you do it precinct by precinct.
Right, and I agree.
Start small.
So the strategy I'm using, I have been going to a lot of the city council meetings, because they're trying to implement a Doge in Jacksonville. They're trying to do some other things almost to replicate or duplicate what the Democrats are already doing. So I have met with a lot of the neighborhood presidents that's in Florida House District 14. So I met one of them last week. So she's going to invite me to their meetings where all the neighborhood association presidents meet. So that way I can be able to implement the strategy that both of you were talking about of working a precinct by precinct. And I'm having to do a lot of education based on their neighborhoods because they still are confused what district they're in. So I've gotten creative to use zip codes and their neighborhood names to let them know, okay, if you live in this neighborhood, say Brentwood, if you live in Magnolia Gardens, if you live in Sherwood or Grand Park, you are in Florida House District 14. And by me doing that, it helps them to understand, oh, okay, this is the district I live in. And then I connect it to their city council because they're more familiar with local government representation than the state government representation. So I've been having to do a lot of education and finding innovative ways to help them understand, okay, this is the district you live in. This is where your precinct is. And I don't mind doing that. And any candidate should want to do that to make sure they're getting their voters, their constituents involved. So it's just taking me a little bit more innovation, a little more common sense to make sure to bring them to the table. So next month, I'm launching my in-person events where I'm going to be doing events in their district to bring them in, have the clipboard, like you told me, Dr. Ferguson Sr., to have them sign up and volunteer. So I will know where they are, where they live, and I'm using technology. So we have the Nextdoor app where they can register right in their neighborhood and they can advocate and recruit voters on that app as well, so they know who live right on their street.
Okay, that's great.
So
that's the way you have to do it.
Yes, sir. So I'm listening to both of you all, but I'm adding some innovation where I can meet them where they are, help them understand, what they do at the state level and the federal level impacts them right on their doorstep. So to draw the connection, to let them know when you don't vote, this is what you allow to happen and make it hard.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Right.
So I'm partnering with some. Yeah. So I trust me. I got y'all strategies, but I'm incorporating some new things together so I can extend the reach and also have other folks to start thinking. But the reason for me doing this interview, because I don't want the young generation, the next generation, to forget about the sacrifices that you all have done for us, because we need to respect the investment that y'all have made in civil engagement to make sure, like John Lewis says, that voting is a privilege and a right, and we can lose it if we don't stay engaged. So that's why I wanted to record this interview with both of you, because it speaks to your efforts, Dr. Senior, of what you sacrifice and how you pass and the baton to your son, Ferguson Jr., which I am eternally grateful for. And he already knows if he calls me, I am there, because I did not want to get in this race. All I did was make a phone call on what it would take to run. And I didn't know, I didn't know y'all was that he was looking.
Well, the thing about it is, our reward is talking to people like you. It's all worth it. If you're the only person that I've gotten to this point, it's all worth it, So this is our reward, is to get somebody who wants to carry the torch.
I thank you for that. Yes, sir. I thank you for that. So now my next question to you all. I understand recently Dr. Ferguson Jr. has been working with the Virginia Assembly of recruiting quality candidates. What does that process look like, and why the effort, why the recruiting of candidates is essential, especially for the Democratic Party and the Black vote?
Well,
you want that, Jack? Go for it.
I can give my impression. You
Yeah,
got to have, well, first of all, we found that the Democratic Party was kind of screwed up. In other words, there are some people in the Democratic Party, blacks, that control the black element in the party. But it's in their interest that they control it is not in the interest of the blacks. So we have now got resistance from blacks in the Democratic Party who were not interested in building the party. You got to build a party in order to be successful, and you got to get candidates to run in order to build a party. If you don't have candidates that are reliable and are trustworthy, people will say, "Oh, my one vote doesn't count," or "It's all rigged," and so forth. Well, some of it is rigged, and it's rigged with blacks cooperating with whites to control the party. But we don't want anybody controlling the party. We want it to be open to everybody. And that's why we got to run candidates for city council, for dog catcher, for coroner, whatever they run for. We got to have candidates running because every candidate has at least 10 or 20 people that are going to vote for them if they run because they know them. So the more candidates we have, the more people that are running that are known or have friends who are not involved, that they will get involved. And that's what we have to do. And we have to do it from the precinct level. We have to do it from the school board level, or the city council level, or whatever city attorney, whatever job's open, we got to make sure that we got a black running for it.
So I'll give you my answer, Therese.
Okay.
Why is it important?
Mm-hmm.
In a city like Jacksonville, where a lot of Democrats live, of any race, it's easy to find Democratic candidates. And that's why the other party found your incumbent in your race. Because they knew if they put somebody who was reasonably well known, who, you know, they could control a little bit, they would own that seat. And they owned the seat before the last gerrymander, before Angie Nixon took out that woman.
Right.
And they created a new district for her.
Right.
That's why she can get elected, because it's easy to find Democratic candidates where you are in the city. It's hard to find Democratic candidates out in the rural area. Mm-hmm. And the party doesn't care about those because they know they can't win them. But the Democrats live out there, and they need somebody to vote for, especially when there's a statewide race going on, because those votes count just as much as the votes from the city count. And, you know, the state Democrats in a lot of states have fallen into this trap of thinking, oh, we don't have to really worry too much about those rural Republican districts. We don't have to pay any attention to those because we can win the state just with our city votes. Mm-hmm. That's a recipe for disaster. And it's just not small d Democratic. So what Dad and I and our friends have been doing in a bunch of states, but mostly in Virginia and in Florida. Mm-hmm. You remember, you worked with Margie Stein, finding candidates to run everywhere, because Democrats live everywhere. And there's purpose and there's value in running Democrats everywhere of any race, whatever, you know, whatever the demographics of the area are. Mm-hmm. Hopefully you can find candidates who will run in those areas. What I'm finding in Virginia right now, in Virginia, there's 100 state house seats, not 120 like in Florida. We only have 4 districts left to recruit. But in a lot of these very rural districts that are overwhelmingly white, the people who have been stepping up, some of them are Black people and women of either any race, and military veterans. Now, why would it be that there's a statistically significant group of Black people or women or military veterans stepping up in these overwhelmingly rural Republican districts? because these people understand what it means to put it on the line, and they know what the downside risk of not having somebody run there is. You know, they don't have privilege. You know, military veterans have worked to give everybody privilege. You know, women have been subjugated. Black people have been subjugated. So they understand what the downside risk is of not participating, not showing up to play the game. And I think that's why you see an outsized number of women, Black people, and military veterans stepping up in places that the party people think of as wasteland areas and a waste of time, waste of resources. It's the famous phrase, oh, that's going to be a waste of resources. And that's a fallacy, because none of it's a waste of resources. It's all part of the state. And in Virginia this cycle, they have a governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general race. Those people are elected statewide. They need votes from everywhere in the state. And having candidates in every district helps bring out votes all throughout the state. Does that make sense?
Yes, makes a lot of sense. So I want to get you all's take on the recent development of a Black Republican from Tampa that filed to run in the Florida House District race in 2026, Reginald B. Stratton. That I shared with Dr. Jr. of one of the tactics that they're using in Florida to try to control the Black vote, in the words of Dr. Sr. So this is a new strategy that the Republicans are trying to do in Florida.
Where's this fellow running? Hold on a second. Where's this fellow running?
He's running in my race here in Jacksonville, Florida, but he lives in Tampa, Florida, and he's a Black Republican.
Right. So, Dad, you don't have to live in the district to run in Florida. You do have to live in the district to run in Virginia. But in Florida, if you don't live in the district and you run and you get elected, then you have to move into the district by midnight on election night. So that's a Florida rule. That's not a Virginia rule. That's a Florida rule. So if this fellow from Tampa has filed to run in your Jacksonville D+30 district, that just sounds like shenanigans to me. I mean, there's no real, it doesn't really ring like they're trying to have this guy win. They're just trying to create confusion.
Absolutely. But when you campaign, and if you at a meeting with him, keep asking him, well, where do you live? Why didn't you run in that district? Or you can have somebody in the audience ask him, why are you running from here when you live in Tampa? Why don't you run from where you live? Did somebody put you up to running? You know they did, and you may not want to say it, but you have to get somebody in the audience to ask him those questions. You know, it's obvious what's happening, because if he wants to be in the legislature, you should want to be in it from your hometown.
Exactly.
And get A.G. Gankarski to write about it, because that's newsworthy. Dad A.G. Gankarski is the political writer in Florida who writes this kind of stuff. So that's right up in his wheelhouse. Therese, just tell A.G. Hey, this dude's running for this district in Jacksonville, but he lives in Tampa. So what's up?
Right. And what kind of work does he do in Tampa? And you don't make that much money to live off in the legislature. What kind of job is he going to get is he looking for? Or how is he going to support his family?
Well, my background check that I did, he's a car salesman at Toyota in Tampa.
Oh yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe
in Florida, Republicans play these games where they are back channeling money to the folk that they are helping do the shenanigans. I mean, Republicans get in a lot of trouble in Florida doing this. So, I mean, this is not an unusual thing. This is a very usual thing for Florida.
Right. So with that being said, that discouraged a lot of black voters and black and brown voters to come to the poll or either lean toward voting for quality Democratic candidates. So
Right.
so how would what wisdom would you impart in me, say as a candidate, to help them understand that this type of shenanigan goes on and how for them not to get so caught up in it and focus on the facts and not this fake stuff?
Well,
I don't think it really matters. Yeah, go ahead, Dan. Go ahead.
Well, if you go, what I would do, I'm sure there are a lot of local problems that are peculiar to Jacksonville that you all want resolved by the state legislature. So you could get somebody, if there are key things, you can get somebody in the audience to say, well, what do you think about so and so? He's not going to be aware of that project because it's not spread all over Florida. So get people in the audience to keep asking him questions about local problems that you all want the legislature to resolve. So he can read up on them, but in the beginning, he's not going to be familiar with what the problems are, and he's not going to have solutions. And when he comes up with solutions, they may not be what the people in Jacksonville want. So I've tried to trap him that way, but Fergie wanted to say something.
Yeah, I think he's completely irrelevant to you, Therese,
Of
because your
course.
district's D+30. Well, your election is the primary, and you register by party in Florida. So he's obviously not involved in your primary. So your whole election is the primary, and having him be in your race is just trying to get your eye off the ball. So keep your eye on the ball, which is your primary. Any Republican in your district is totally irrelevant, absolutely irrelevant. It's a D+30 district. And, you know, just don't behave as though he doesn't exist. And, you know, if you win the primary, you're the representative. The general election is just an afterthought.
Exactly. And this is the other thing I want to tell both of you all. I was getting messages after the 2024 primary race that many of them, after they voted in the general election, they told me they voted for me. So I got curious and I reached out to the supervisor of elections to find out how many people actually voted for me, even though I wasn't on the ballot. You know, they had a blank for the write-in because there was a write-in candidate in my race. And I've learned later that it was almost 3,000 people wrote my name in the ballot for the general election on November 5th last year because they were upset.
That's great.
They were upset that I didn't win the primary but it was a lot of folks like Dr. Ferguson Sr said that didn't show up to vote in the precincts, and I got those breakdown numbers, so I know what precincts I need to target of those who didn't vote or the vote turnout was very low. So I am
right. You need to educate your voters that the primary is the general election in your district.
Exactly.
And you know, the November election in your district only matters for anybody running statewide. The primary is the election that elects the state representative in your district.
Right.
That's not true for every district in Florida, but it is true for your district. And so, you know, whoever wins the primary, that's the most important day for the voters to show up to vote if they want to elect you as their next local representative.
Sounds good. So now,
yeah, they got to show up in November to elect the statewide, but they got to show up in the primaries in August in Florida, right?
Right.
They got to show up in August to elect you.
Right, August 18th, 2026.
Right. So they got to show up in August. That's the date that they elect their state rep in this district in Jacksonville. Other districts in Florida, they got to show up both in August and in November. But in this district, the one that you're running in, August is the date that they elect their state rep.
So Dr. Ferguson
because it's a D+30 district. Go ahead.
Yeah, Dr. Ferguson Sr. With that being said, and everything that you have done and accomplished in your life, if you had an opportunity to do it all over again, what would it be?
Well, if the conditions were the same at that time, I'd do just like I did now. Uh, uh, Probably I would hope that I didn't have to run, but if nobody's going to do it, then somebody has to do it. And if I feel there's a cause worth fighting for, I'm going to fight for it. So I don't think I would do it much differently.
So tell
Because
both
you
of
did
you.
it well.
Yes, you did. I was reading the resolution. I've been reading all the stories about you. And to be honest, this what makes me frustrated in Florida with them taking Black history out of the curriculum, because your story
Right.
and your fight is something that this generation needs to know about, so they don't have to recreate the wheel. So
Here's
both of
Right.
something
you,
that's peculiar, Therese. Here's something
uh-huh,
that's peculiar.
uh-huh,
When Dad got elected, he was the only Black person, right? There was just one in the House or the Senate.
wow,
Now that number is over 30. All the
wow,
Black people in the House and the Senate, over 30. There's an 8-member AAPI caucus, Asian American Pacific Island caucus. There's a 4 or 5-member Hispanic caucus. There are, at least 5 or 6 LGBT folks. And there's a whole slew of women, right?
wow, yeah,
The Virginia Black Legislative Caucus completely ignored Dad's birthday, 100th
wow,
birthday of their founding member. As individuals, they wished him happy birthday, but the caucus as a group ignored his birthday. The resolution that you're talking about got put up by one of the members of the AAPI caucus.
wow,
One of the brand new members of the AAPI caucus. And by himself, he went around to everybody in the state Senate and the state House and got unanimity. All members, Democrats, Republicans, white, Black, every, demographic group, every elected who was there on that day signed on to that resolution honoring Dad. That guy's one of the members of the AAPI caucus. His name's Canon Srinivasan.
easy.
It wasn't one of the Black members who did that. In past legislative cycles, it has been a Black member, sometimes a Hispanic member. One year it was a Muslim member. But you only turn 100 one time.
That's true.
And that's a milestone.
Yes, it
That's
is.
a real milestone. And to have the Legislative Black Caucus completely ignore it, that's indicative of something.
Right.
I don't know what it's indicative of. Maybe it's, a privilege attitude, like, we don't have to really remember where we came from. But, a lot of times when you're celebrating the 100th, the person is not there any longer, right?
Right. Uh-huh.
Well, you're on the phone with Dad right now.
Of course.
And he's talking real sense to you. He's
Yes,
talking
he
real
is.
sense to you, right?
Yes.
And
yes, he is.
so he can talk sense to everybody. And the Legislative Black Caucus is there. He could be talking sense to them if they wanted him to. They didn't even, do the basics of a social media post wishing him a happy birthday for his 100th birthday. And I think that's sad.
Yeah, I think it is too. But look, that they're in Virginia, I'm in Florida. I'm gonna show you how to acknowledge somebody by the time
That's
we
what I'm
get done
talking
with
about.
this, and make
That's what
them
I'm talking about.
embarrassed, because you have to honor.
Exactly.
You have to honor what your father did, because if he wouldn't have did what he did, we wouldn't have the opportunities and the privileges we have today. So I'm telling you and showing you, I'm thankful. I am very much
Well, I
thankful.
appreciate it. I appreciate it. And I'm glad to help you in any way I can.
I'm super excited.
Thank you
to
for
know
having
that.
us on, Theresa. Therese,
Yeah.
excuse me.
One more thing.
Thank you for having us on your podcast.
Awesome.
Yeah, one more thing.
One more thing. Tell everybody about 90 for 90 and how they can get involved and to support and keep the initiative going.
Fergie, you want to take that?
Yeah, 90FOR90.org. We started it 10 years ago when Dad turned 90. Some of his political allies in Richmond wanted to do something nice for his 90th birthday. They called and asked, if he had any dietary restrictions because they wanted to give him some ice cream and cake. And I said, well, you guys love each other on a political basis. Why don't you do something politically substantive for his 90th birthday? And this 90 for 90 project was born from that. It stands for, everybody working together, trying to register 90 new voters per precinct per year. 90 new voters per precinct per year throughout the state. The math on that works out to about 250,000 new voters for the state. In Florida, the math on that would work out to probably 750,000 new voters every year. So it's just voter hygiene, basically.
Right.
When we started it in 2015, Democrats had 33 seats out of the 100 seats in the House. They were in the super minority. I think Democrats in Florida are in the super minority now.
Yes.
And so I quickly understood we got to do more than voter registration. We got to do candidate recruitment. So I've been doing that cycle after cycle, doing it in Florida as well. 90FOR90.org, at 90 for 90 on Twitter, and 90 for 90 Blue Sky Social on Blue Sky. Yeah, follow along. Do this in your own state. Do this in Florida. If whoever's listening to this is Florida centric, take control of your area. Just, it's not, I often hear people complaining about the party. And I tell them, when you look in the mirror, that's the party. If you're not going to do it, then don't complain that the party's not doing it, because you are the party. You're as much the party as anybody in Richmond or Tallahassee or wherever your state party is located. You take control of it and, start small, like we've been talking about earlier. Start small, have a candidate. If your local county committee is not recruiting a candidate, you recruit one. Find out what the rules are to get your candidate on the ballot. Get your candidate on the ballot, and then let the state party respond to you. You don't have to wait for them to do anything. Is that a good enough answer for you?
That is perfect. Yes, I love it. Thank you both for doing this podcast for me. I am super excited. I can't wait to get the feedback from it. I know it's going to be amazing. And as always, I will stay in touch. And again, happy birthday, Dr. Ferguson Sr., for reaching 100 years old, and keep going.
Oh, thank you so very much. And you have my telephone number. Anytime you have a question, feel free to call. Usually I tell people to call after 12 noon, and before 11 o'clock p.m. at night. So that's the hours that I'm
100 years old, staying up till 11 o'clock at night. He's a late nighter, man. He's a late nighter. I got to get you to go to bed earlier.
Look, thank you for giving me the hotline hours, because I will sure be using it. I will be using it, Dr. Ferguson Sr. Dr. Ferguson Jr., as always, I'm indebted to you, and I know we're going to be tied to life. And again, I extend me and my expertise and my services to help 90 for 90, whether I'm in office
well,
or
just
not.
tell everybody to get involved in Virginia this year. So, it's easy enough. Just like your campaign, you can get them making phone calls and sending postcards and all the rest of that stuff. But thank you for having us on, and, keep working through the lull of the Florida cycle. Do your homework now, so when it becomes election season in Florida, all your homework will be done already.
Right.
Sounds like a plan. I sure will.
All right.
Thank you both.
Talk to you soon.
Yes.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye, you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Voices of Florida House District 14. Love thy neighborhood. If you felt seen, heard, or inspired, share this episode, subscribe to our podcast, and spread the word across our district and beyond. From Durkeeville to Dunn Avenue, from East Side to Edgewood, from Springfield to San Marco, and across every street near the stadium downtown. We are building power, one voice at a time. Don't forget to sign the petition to get me on the 2026 ballot and donate $26 today to keep this campaign for the people, powered by the people. Schedule your story session, stay connected on social media, and join our volunteer team, digitally or in person, because change starts with us, right here, right now, right on your block. Until next time, love your neighbor, lift your voice, and let's fight for the future we all deserve. Paid for by Therese V. Wakefield-Gamble, Democrat for Florida House District 14, produced by